Hi everyone! In this video, I will discuss the topics of translingualism and deficit mindset in the field of education. I will explore how these concepts can shape our understanding of teaching writing courses. So, let's dive right in. In education, translingualism refers to valuing students' full range of languages and using them strategically to enhance learning and communication. In their work, Opinion, Horner et al., 2011, propose a transformative approach to language diversity in writing courses, pushing back against traditional views. They argue for a shift away from rigid, monolingual standards and instead emphasize embracing the rich tapestry of languages students bring to their writing. This linguistic repertoire, they assert, should be viewed as a valuable asset, not a shortcoming. Therefore, recognizing and appreciating students' diverse backgrounds is paramount. In addition, the authors advocate for a research-driven and conceptually rich framework for addressing language differences in educational settings, research practices, and policy discussions. They call for revamping writing programs to equip them better to handle the complexities of language diversity. This could involve curriculum revisions, providing instructors with professional development opportunities, and fostering collaborative efforts with foreign language departments. By deepening their understanding of language differences and incorporating them effectively into teaching practices, educators can cultivate a more inclusive and equitable writing environment that celebrates the wealth of linguistic variation present in the classroom. In addition, translingualism can be introduced in the classroom via the teacher's identity. Building on the call for inclusivity, Lee and Kanagaraja, 2019, introduced the concept of translingual dispositions as an alternative to the traditional categories of native English speaker, NES, and non-native English speaker, NNEs, in defining language teacher identity. In short, translingual dispositions refer to the attitudes and beliefs that make someone open to using and appreciating the multifaceted ways people use language. These dispositions are key for effective communication in today's globalized world. Echoing Horner's emphasis on diversity, they advocate for a more expansive framework that recognizes and celebrates the linguistic richness of both teachers and students. They argue that the NES-NNES binary creates an overly simplistic picture and proposes a more nuanced understanding that incorporates translingual practices. Their research suggests that fostering translingual dispositions in language teachers can lead to a more equitable and inclusive learning environment. By promoting critical analysis, self-reflection, and embracing linguistic variety, the teacher in their study embodies a pedagogical approach that challenges traditional methods and cultivates a supportive space for multilingual learners. This approach prioritizes developing students into autonomous and introspective writers. Instead of imposing rigid rules, it encourages rhetorical awareness and the ability to navigate language differences with creativity. Moreover, translingualism can help us illuminate the interplay between language difference and writer agency. In Translingual Literacy, Language Difference, and Matters of Agency, Liu and Horner, 2013, argue that writing is a dynamic process of recontextualizing language, meaning, and self-perception. This highlights the fluid and evolving nature of cultural markers like ethnicity, nationality, and identity. Furthermore, a translingual approach brings to the forefront the interconnectedness of linguistic structures and writing practices. Consequently, the focus shifts away from viewing language differences as deficiencies and instead emphasizes students' power to shape and reshape standardized conventions, their sense of self, and their relationship with the world. Also, Liu and Horner advocate for a critical analysis of language use as a form of negotiation within unequal power structures. This analysis considers the political implications of language choices and lived experiences. Additionally, they emphasize the importance of acknowledging and valuing the linguistic contributions of writers from marginalized groups. This underscores the need to move beyond simplistic categories and embrace the rich complexity of translingual writing. Building on the call for inclusivity, Rashi Jain, 2022, argues that a translingual approach to pedagogy can challenge outdated monolingual ideas and foster a more diverse and welcoming language learning environment. She examines identity construction in English for academic purposes, EAP classrooms, and critiques the overly simplified distinction between native and non-native speakers. In her teaching, Jane integrates critical discussions within the classroom setting. This approach aims to shift the focus away from the dominance of the native speaker norm and introduce students to alternative ways of understanding their linguistic identities. By encouraging students to engage in reflective conversations, she seeks to dismantle the binary classification of language proficiency and cultivate a more multifaceted understanding of linguistic diversity. Finally, Jane emphasizes the significance of creating spaces where students can critically analyze and challenge traditional notions of language ownership and expertise. By integrating multilingual viewpoints and encouraging students to explore their own linguistic backgrounds, she empowers learners to embrace their translingual identities and actively challenge any biases favoring monolingualism. As a teaching methodology, translingualism is a response to a deficit mindset. In the context of education, a deficit mindset refers to the belief that students who struggle, particularly those from marginalized backgrounds, lack inherent ability or necessary skills. It focuses on what students are missing and what's wrong with them, rather than their existing strengths and potential for growth, which can lead to lowered expectations and limit student achievement. Yang Zhao, 2016, challenges the prevailing deficit mindset-driven model of meritocratic education, which prioritizes fixing students' perceived shortcomings to meet standardized benchmarks. He argues that this approach not only perpetuates social inequalities, but also hinders students' ability to move up the social ladder. Ultimately, it fails to address the underlying causes of educational inequity and widens the achievement gap in American schools. Zhao proposes a paradigm shift towards identifying and nurturing students' individual strengths instead of solely dwelling on their weaknesses. He emphasizes the importance of recognizing each student's diversity of strengths and potential. Schools, he argues, should play a more active role in helping students discover and develop their unique talents and abilities. By redirecting the focus from deficits to strengths, education can evolve into a more inclusive and effective system that equips students with the necessary skills to navigate the complexities of today's world. In essence, there is a critical need to move beyond the current educational model and embrace a new approach that values individuality, cultivates strengths, and fosters a more equitable and empowering learning experience for all students. Similarly, Julie Choi and Yvette Slaughter, 2021, investigate the use of language trajectory grids as a multimodal tool to challenge the monolingual norm. These grids serve as a visual representation of learners' lived experiences with language. Their research aligns with the growing emphasis on multilingualism in language education, which challenges traditional monolingual biases and views multilingual individuals as possessing multifaceted competencies by drawing on their diverse linguistic resources. Choi and Slaughter advocate for incorporating learners' cultural and linguistic repertoires as valuable educational assets. They emphasize the importance of understanding students' linguistic journeys from a socio-historical perspective, taking into account the discourses that shape their attitudes toward language learning. The study focuses on an Australian high school with a significant English as an additional language (EAL) student population. The researchers employ narrative analysis to delve into the learners' experiences. The findings highlight the intricacy of multilingual EAL learners' journeys. While the study centers on English language acquisition, discussions with students reveal the richness and significance of their linguistic repertoires beyond English. This is evident in students' strategic deployment of linguistic resources as they actively engage with multiple languages when reading, viewing, and listening, demonstrating their multilingual capabilities. However, the fact that these resources often go unrecognized can lead to feelings of inadequacy among multilingual students. In conclusion, Choi and Slaughter champion learner-centered approaches that empower students to reflect critically on their own linguistic journeys. In a similar vein, Renee Smeet, 2012, examines the entrenched deficit thinking model prevalent in higher education and delves into the impact of student disadvantage on pedagogical practices. Smeet exposes how this approach perpetuates negative stereotypes, disenfranchises students, and fails to acknowledge the systemic barriers that hinder student success. She proposes a paradigm shift towards a more inclusive approach that acknowledges students' diverse backgrounds and recognizes the value of their pre-university experiences. By reframing the conversation around disadvantage and embracing the principles of translingualism, institutions can foster a learning environment that prioritizes equity and offers greater support to all students. Smith's research underscores the critical need to move beyond a deficit mindset and cultivate a more nuanced understanding of student diversity within higher education. Lastly, overcoming the deficit mindset model in education can allow us to make significant shifts within the context of students with disabilities. David J. Connor, 2020, highlights the significance of disability studies in education, DSE, as a transformative force for both educational systems and views on disability. He stresses the importance of shifting from deficit-based views of students with disabilities to fostering an inclusive and fair educational setting. Specifically, Connor proposes integrating DSE tenets into teacher training programs to develop educators who are committed to social justice and ensuring all students have equal educational opportunities, thereby combating ableism and encouraging inclusive teaching methods. In short, translingualism, as a response to the deficit mindset model, has transformative potential in the classroom. Celebrating the variety of languages students bring to the classroom rather than focusing on what they lack can serve as valuable assets. In other words, allowing students to use their full linguistic repertoire in writing classes can be beneficial. This would involve teachers being more accepting of different languages and ways of using language. As we have seen, the idea that students with different language backgrounds are at a disadvantage is incorrect. Teachers should value students' strengths and backgrounds to create a fair learning environment. Overall, these ideas point to the importance of creating inclusive classrooms that celebrate the diversity of languages that students bring with them.